Members, we have formed a quorum. I call the meeting to order now. Please be seated. Okay. Let's start now. Item number 1, confirmation of minutes. It's a CB 456/12/13. The draft minutes have been sent to members. The Secretariat hasn't received any proposed amendments. If there's no objection, then I'll take it that the minutes can be confirmed. Okay, thank you. Next, information papers issued since the last meeting. There are 8 which are set out in the agenda. Next item for discussion at the next meeting, which will be held on the 17th of April from 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And we are going to discuss, first of all, international school campus sites for international schools, and also the a proposed 30 classroom primary school in Kai-Tak, site 1A to 3. And on top, we may also want to discuss something that should have been discussed today. That is Mr. Yip Kyun Yin's proposed item on the drop in student population. Next item on the agenda, issues relating to the existing policy on the use of land for education purposes. Let's invite our guests and officials to join us. I want to remind members that in accordance with our rules of procedure 83A, if members have direct or indirect peculiar interest regarding today's discussion item, you should disclose your interest before you speak. Let me declare mine. I'm a member of the advisory committee of Polytech U and Baptist U, and I'm also the chairman of a school sponsoring body, secondary school. Let's have all the decorations first. I'm a manager of a DSS school and also a principal of a secondary school. Well, I'm also a school principal of a secondary school registered with the education department. Ms. Claudia Mo, do you wish to declare your interest? I teach English writing in a journalism program in Baptist U. What about CUHK? I also teach a subject of the public affairs and politics faculty. I'm a member of the board of Hong Kong Arts College. I'm a council member of Hong Kong U and also part-time lecturer of Hong Kong Institute of Education, and I'm also a board member of a secondary school. I'm a lecturer at Poly U. All right. Dr. Fernando Zhang. My interest is the same as Ms. Helena Wong. All right. Let's proceed to our discussion item. Today we have acting secretary, Mr. Kevin Young. Over to you for an introduction. Sorry, Chairman. I want to lodge a complaint. I'm not quite sure about the procedure. But today we don't have the secretary. any secretary, whether it be a secretary for education or secretary for development. Ms. Mo, I understand your point. I understand your point. Mr. Ng is not in Hong Kong, so Mr. Kevin Young is acting secretary for education. We don't have the secretary for development and the secretary for food and health. Well, I understand your concern. Although I was in Beijing, I already asked the Secretariat to write to the administration because land for education purposes has attracted a lot of social attention. So we did write to the Education Bureau. Why no the accountability officials can be sent to this meeting, whether we're talking about secretaries, undersecretaries, and so on. The Secretariat received a reply saying that a Deputy Secretary for Food and Health would be representing Food and Health Bureau, and the Development Bureau would be represented by Mr. Thomas Chan. Well, have they all died? Well, I cannot reply on their behalf. When it's time for you to raise questions, by all means, raise this question. All right? Over to Mr. Young. Please be succinct and to the point in your introduction. Thank you. The paper sets out the methodology of allocating land for education purposes. We are here to an established policy to provide resources and land for education. For primary and secondary schools, we look at two broad objectives. We have to make sure that we can provide sufficient number of public sector school places for all eligible students, and on the other hand, we want to provide appropriate infrastructure to upgrade the quality of education. So we would look at the student population projection, the number of students who have to go to another district for education, and the projected needs now and in the future. The Education Bureau will have reference to the school population projections, the existing policy, and other factors that may affect demand in certain districts, and whether there is any shortage in any of school places in any district. As for post-secondary sector, we have two sub-sectors here. There's the self-finance sector. We have allocated 10 sites and 5 vacant school premises to institutions to operate tertiary courses, including one in Silicon Shatin and Chengye, Taiwan. The former Victoria Road Detention Center and another vacant school premises have been made available for application. The former Queen's Hill site will also be allocated for self-financing post-secondary education. We will continue to understand from the post-secondary sector their needs for land and identify suitable sites and vacant school premises for their use. As for the publicly funded sector, we have established methodology and criteria, and we support institutions to build hostels and teaching facilities for their students. Due to the scarcity of land, we have to maximize land utilizations. For those with school campus, we would encourage them to build such facilities in situ, or to redevelop the existing buildings or expand existing facilities to make the best use of the land they have. If necessary, we would assist tertiary institutions to identify off-site lands so as to meet the relevant planning and calculation criteria. In fact, we are in discussion with some institutions which are suffering from a shortage of hostels or teaching facilities. site identification will be done with regard to a number of factors to make sure that the land sole provider will tie in with their development plans. Whether we're talking about in situ expansion of new sites, we should give priority to the programs and needs for facilities established under existing policies and priorities. I'll pause here, Mr. Chairman. Today we have a number of guests, including Professor Albert Chan, Mr. Ivan Ho, Mr. Temple Yu. I would like to know if there's any supplement on this side. If not, then I'll open the floor for questions. Members? Questions? Who would like to ask questions? This is the speaking order. Dr. Fernando Zhang, Helena Wong, Yip Kim Yun, Claudia Mo, Charles Mok, Regina Yip, six of them. First round, questions and answer, 4 minutes each. Dr. Fernando Zhang. Thank you. The land sale program for the next year has been announced, and we are taken aback that for 22 sites in the program, one of them would be the former Levi Lei site. For years, this is a GIC land, government, institution, and community, and it has been used for education for so many years. I just don't understand why the government finds it as justified to put this on the land sale program, and then an application will be submitted to change this to a medium density residential site.
I think this medium density housing estate will be a luxury estate. In fact, it's surrounded by the facilities of the Baptist University. For so many years, the Baptist University has been earnestly seeking land for the construction of hostels and a hospital for Chinese medicine. So I'd like to know what justifications the government has for changing this long-standing educational site to a site for luxury flats. How is the government going to satisfy the need for educational sites? Secretary, Undersecretary, perhaps I should say something about educational purposes. All along, as Dr. Zhang said, the site was put to educational uses. After Li Wai moved out, we studied how the site should be used. When we examined the future use of the site, as you said, the Baptist University is nearby. As we mentioned in our paper, under the existing policy and the calculation criteria, we studied how much floor area the Baptist University would need for educational purposes for 2014-15. As a result, we divided the site into two parts. To the north, 0.64 hectares of land would be passed to the Baptist University for residual facilities for teaching purposes and hostels. As for the southern part, as the northern portion will satisfy all the educational needs, we'll see whether there are other educational uses. All along, we're discussing with other subvented institutions their needs. And in the vicinity of those institutions, we've been identifying land sites. So basically, in the southern portion, well, can we save time? Well, after listening to Mr. Yang, he is saying that with just half of that site, Baptist University's needs would be met. Did the administration consult the Baptist University whether or not they would have enough land? Did you consult the Baptist U on their long-term needs? Well, his question is, you made the decision, but before that decision was made, did you consult the Baptist U? Our approach was to adopt the established criteria. Did you consult the UGC? Well, I think, please summarize your reply to Dr. Fernando Chan. We did have a consultation mechanism, and we consulted the Baptist University as to its needs in the next triennium. Well, please wait for your second round. Helena Wong? I think the issue today is not just an educational one. The issue involves also the government's attitude towards the development of Chinese medicine. According to the Baptist U proposal, the southern portion of the formerly Wiley site should be used for a Chinese medicine hospital. In the long run, should Hong Kong support the development of Chinese medicine? If so, should the government bear the responsibility of constructing a Chinese medicine hospital? It's just like other public hospitals. They are totally constructed and operated by the hospital authority, not by universities. So, should Hong Kong support the development of Chinese medicine? We can see that a few universities in Hong Kong offer Chinese medicine programs. Chinese University, Hong Kong U, and Baptist U all have degree courses and postgraduate courses on Chinese medicine. However, there's no Chinese medicine hospital for internship. All the students of the three universities have to go to the mainland for internship. So on the one hand, the government says it supports the development of Chinese medicine. So why don't we have a hospital and a teaching hospital for Chinese medicine? Why should our students go to the mainland for internship? There may not be matching facilities for our students. Should it be the Food and Health Bureau or the Education Bureau answering this question? Perhaps I should first defer to Ms. Jie. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Wong. First of all, I have to clearly point out that the Food and Health Bureau supports the development of Chinese medicine. Well, Chairman, please ask her to speak louder. We support the development of Chinese medicine. We also support the development of a Chinese medicine hospital. The committee concerned has already started a study on feasibility. At present, we don't have hospital services for Chinese medicine because in the main, only outpatient services are provided for Chinese medicine. Take, for example, in an emergency case, the emergency services provided come under Western medicine. So in law, only Western medical practitioners will provide the service. Whether or not there are facilities, operation rooms, etc. for Chinese medicine, all these will be examined when we study the construction of a hospital for Chinese medicine. In the CE's manifesto, it's already mentioned that hospital or hospitalization services should be provided for Chinese medicine. At present, we're not yet providing a site for the construction of a Chinese medicine hospital, because the future modus operandi, the regulatory regime, etc., are not yet established. If we are to develop hospitalization services for Chinese medicine, basically we support that. Formally, we did say that we did look at the Tsim Sha Tsui site. 10 more seconds for Helena Wong. I would like to know how long that study will take. For Hong Kong U, Chinese U, and Baptist U, they've been running Chinese medicine programs for 15 years. In Hong Kong, we don't have hospitalization services for Chinese medicine. Our Chinese medicine students do have internship. For example, for Hong Kong U, 320 hours of internship must be completed by a student throughout various clinics. They have to go to the mainland because on the mainland they amalgamate Western medicine and Chinese medicine. So that's different from us. Otherwise, in Hong Kong, we have sufficient outpatient clinics for internship. Next, Mr. Ip Kin Yin. My question is mainly for the Food and Health Bureau. On the 4th of March, the government published a statement in which there is this remark that up to the 28th of February 2013, the Baptist University withdrew its collaboration scheme or agreement. Well, the statement said is the 28th of February. But according to the information from the Baptist University, on October the 10th last year, there was an email from the Baptist U to the FHB that said that the Li Wai Li site should be used for a Chinese medicine hospital. I'd like to confirm from the FHB whether or not it received that email. And after receiving that email, was it that the request of the Baptist University had been passed to the Education Bureau and the Lands Department or Development Bureau? I'd like to confirm all these so as to do justice to all parties concerned. Ms. Chen is there. Mr. Chairman, allow me to recount what happened. In October 2011, the Baptist University provided to us this plan on Chinese medicine. And then in September 2012, that is on the 26th of September of that year, this plan was submitted to our secretary. On page 5, they say that they formally signed an agreement with the Tsim Sha Tsui Kaifeng Association on the development of Chinese medicine. So from 2011 to 2012, we worked very hard on that collaboration between Tsim Sha Tsui Kaifeng Association and Baptist University. And then on the 10th of October 2012, at an informal meeting, the Baptist University indicated that they had some difficulties in collaborating with Tsim Sha Tsui Kaifeng Association, and the Li Wai Li site was a feasible site. And later they submitted this development plan, a one-page document, via that email mentioned by Mr. Ip. At that time, that site had already been handed to the Baptist University for the construction of student hostels. So long as they can reshuffle the various uses, they can actually include the Chinese medicine hospital. And then we discovered that the site had not yet been handed to Baptist University. Now, that's only an informal suggestion, and we seriously followed up on that proposal. And then on about the 4th of February, when we discussed with Baptist U again, we indicated very clearly that formally in this detailed plan, it is mentioned that a formal agreement had been signed with the Tsim Sha Tsui Kaifeng Association. That was formal to us. And so on the 28th of February, they wrote in to say that the agreement had been cancelled. Well, was she saying that they received a plan, and then on the 4th of February, they received an informal, what they called informal information from the Baptist U via email that there was no agreement, or rather on the 10th of October. Well, on the 10th of October, Baptist University did not formally tell us that the agreement had been cancelled. They only told us that there were difficulties, and we said that we would try our very best to assist them. Well, they mentioned difficulties in governance, etc. And then they passed this draft drawing to us. But we have this very formal plan, so it's very difficult for us to drop that proposal. Claudia Mo, Charles Mock, Regina Ip, Liang Yu Chung, and Wong Yok Man. So next, Ms. Claudia Mo. Thank you, Chairman. Well, I find it rather strange. It's just a small site, but it is very meaningful to the university. We're talking about 0.64 hectare. Well, let me declare interest again. I'm teaching at the Baptist University. Well, I'm teaching here, a communal area. And then this is all surrounded by Baptist University. 0.64. I don't understand what the officials were saying. Apparently, they were being very courteous. But after all, what they're saying that if anything has gone wrong, it was only a mistake committed by the management of the Baptist University. Honestly speaking, the government is serving public interest. If Baptist U said that they had difficulties in collaborating with Tsim Sha Tsui Kai Phong Association and there were management problems, or even if it was the Baptist U that made an about turn, blah, 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 the government is using public money. 0.64 hectare is within the realm of Baptist University. So what are you arguing about? All along from Tung Chi Wah to Leung Chan Ying, we've all along heard that the government has supported the development of a Chinese medicine hub or a Chinese medicine hospital. Well, did I hear you correctly? Our students have to go to the mainland for internship. Baptist University students had to go to Shanghai for internship. So is it just because of face? Education Bureau, would you please tell us? If you make a concession on this, you're worried about a domino effect. You may have to concede on the remaining 21 sites as well. So is it just a question of face? It's just like the sports city in Kai Tak. You said that it would disappear. But even Zhang Tak-sing, the Secretary for Home Affairs, came out to say that that could not be so. Why can't Mr. Ng Hak-kim come out and say something? So maybe the Education Bureau should respond. Mr. Yang? From the angle of the Education Bureau, as we mentioned in our paper, we can only adopt our established policy and planning standards. For UGC-funded teaching programs, how much floor area, how many hostels we need, we can only follow the established formula.
When the calculation tells us that it's not justified to give them the entire site, we cannot just say let's give them the site, because we have to be mindful of the resources. Well, we have professional architects here. You are just saying that after making the calculations, the Baptist U should not be given the entire site. Mr. Thomas Chan, I thank Ms. Mo for her questions. As for the southern portion of former Levi Lake campus, I think the major consideration is the optimum use of land resources. Our colleague from FHB has already said that there's a site, it's the southern portion of the former Vide campus, which is no longer needed for education. And we have asked around, and no other government department wants to keep that site. So we have an obligation to do some planning for this site. So apart from educational sites to the west and south, they are predominantly for residential uses, and there is no compatibility problems. So after assessment, we think that this is appropriate for medium density residential development. This is also in line with social needs, because residential land is very much in demand. And that's why we'll be submitting a proposal to the Town Planning Board to rezone this site for the medium density residential use. So you have the view that this land is a better use for low to medium density residential uses? Well, we have to understand this is part of the former Vide campus. Are you saying that according to your assessment, is the best use? The best use is to use for low to medium density residential use. Well, our assessment that is appropriate to use it for low to medium density residential use. Mr. Charles Moore, I don't think we should try to argue which version or versions are correct. Even if the better use didn't say it needed the site, it doesn't mean that the site should be used for residential, because there are so many calls on our land. And now the CE has announced that the priority should be given to housing people. So is that why all the bureaus have suddenly changed their priorities? It's just like the housing target of 85,000, and people were caught unaware of a sudden change. And now if you have a luxurious residential development surrounded by the school, by campus buildings, this is just not right. If you want to solve people's problems, housing problems, well, you should be bold to build PRH or HOS blocks there. Maybe there will be fewer members objecting. Are we really suffering from a shortage of luxurious housing sites? Are you trying to provide more flats so that parents can have access to these flats and they can send their children to the elite schools in Kowloon Tong? Mr. Yang, are you trying to suggest that Better Use still has land within its campus to build a teaching TCM hospital? I understand they have dormitories in as far as in Junggano. If this site is not going to be used for a TCM hospital, if say the FHB doesn't support the building of a hospital, why not build hostels for them? Why do you want their students to go to Junggano? So these are my questions. And then I would like to ask when, Chairman, you are going to allow our guests from the university and also our guests representing Institute of Architects to speak. Who would you like to put your question to? Well, maybe I can. We can invite our guests from the university or the Hong Kong IA to respond. All right, Mr. Andy Lee or Mr. Ivanhoe? Well, architect first. Don't stand on ceremony. Well, here I'm representing Hong Kong Institute of Architects. Before I came, we reached a consensus within our institute concerning this Vide campus controversy. I think that this should be dealt with in line with principles applying to all land, and the government and other stakeholders should comply with social justice principles. The Town Planning Board has yet to approve the change of zoning, and yet the government has already included this in the land sale program for next year. This is really questionable. And the justifications and professional judgments concerning rezoning it to residential are not really convincing, and we have to consider the synergy and also the planning gain or planning benefits involved. In this incident, we don't think the government can justify its stance. Other stakeholders should likewise comply with the same principle of fairness and justice. You cannot say that this land is just next to my house, it should be mine. I think everyone in Hong Kong should comply with the same principles in allocating land resources. For historical reasons, some universities are in the urban area. If we have to amass land in the vicinity for university expansion, it will mean we're paying a high cost in land and social resources. Then other GIC uses will be crowded out. I think when you want to change the zoning, there must be an overriding benefit. That is to say, your benefit is bigger than that of GIC. There was once a plan to move university campus in urban areas. There should be a long-term planning. We should not have stopgap measures, piecemeal solutions. Otherwise, we would not be able to solve housing problems, and at the same time, we'll be creating other problems. This is the position taken by the Hong Kong IA regard to the Lee Wai Lei campus incident. Mrs. Regina Yip, I have a question for the Development Bureau. You want to use this or half of this former campus for residential. Are you going to designate this under the Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people? And Ms. Chair has explained that a teaching TCM hospital is not very straightforward at all. Acupuncture is more straightforward, and you may have to consult Western doctors if necessary in such a hospital. On this basis, do you agree that the Baptist should be allowed to operate one, and what kind of scale of operation should be allowed? Mr. Thomas Chan, well, I thank the member for her questions. Whether we are going to impose a Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people project for this site. Well, we are going to earmark 2 sites in Kai Tak. There will be 2 sites to be sold this quarter. It will be carried out as a pilot project, because Hong Kong people who are Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people is going to be implemented through the land sale conditions. And also, in our land sale program, we would include some sites which may or may not be immediately available. For example, the sites subject to STT, or sites which would only be available after the amendment of the relevant OSAP or rezoning. We did this in the past because we always want to provide a higher degree of transparency to the market regarding the possible sites that would be made available in the coming year. And we have adopted the same approach for this former Lee Wai Lei campus site. Regina Yip, any supplement? Ms. Chair, what about an answer from you? What kind of teaching TCM hospital would you be would you be ready to regard as appropriate? Actually, in July last year, the Department of Health made some suggestions to the Baptist U. For example, there must be A&E services, and there should be clinical services and other supporting services. And the manning scale should be of a certain scale, and there should be clinical monitoring, and so on and so forth. In the detailed proposal of the Baptist U dated September last year, some of the points have been addressed. We have to look into these points in detail. And since a TCM hospital might have to involve cooperation or collaboration with Western doctors, and for certain procedures, according to the law, that can only be carried out by Western doctors. So we need to clarify which procedure will be carried out by which doctor. The FHB supports the development of hospitalization or inpatient service of TCM. For example, we can have some TCM practitioners going to the traditional hospitals to carry out acupuncture for the stroke patients and so on. Well, they are saying that there are rules and criteria to follow. That they have calculated the land requirement, and the site is too big, and therefore part of it should be given back to government. But the Development Bureau has not really followed the rules. You haven't got the approval from the Town Planning Board. So are there rules for the government or not? I want to clarify this. It's important. It's not the first time. And by, the government thinks that it can do whatever it wants to do without having to pay regard to the stakeholders or public views. They can just go ahead if they want. And now the Education Bureau has come up with a very nice story saying that there's a surplus to the need. But you have to consider that we have implemented the TCM registration since 2000. 13 years have passed. What have you done for TCM? If we don't have a TCM hospital, how can you carry out TCM research? And now you have a very high-sounding justification. You are talking about hospitalization or inpatients, TCM services. Let's not argue about this. But what about research? Do you have any facilities for them to carry out research?
And what are you doing now? You allow Western medicine to monopolize the whole scene. You've never respected TCM. It's unfair. Both categories of medicine can provide medical services. How many Western medicine clinics do you have at the moment? And how many public TCM facilities you have at the moment? It's 0. And just now, they are being bureaucratic by mentioning a whole series of dates. And just recently, a Western medicine practitioner told me that he's in support of the development of TCM, and he's in support of a university doing it. And now the Baptist U is taking a first step. Why is it that the government is creating obstacles after obstacles? The Baptist University colleagues have not yet spoken. Before they speak, I'd like to ask the Development Bureau whether or not they have any criteria to follow. Well, before the Development Bureau speaks, I have to remind members that we're discussing land for education purposes, not just for TCM. Well, Chairman, I'm talking about TCM development as well as TCM curricula. Development Bureau. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for his questions. In handling the site, we follow our established planning practice. Well, this is the southern portion of the Li Li site, which needs not be kept as educational site. Well, Mr. Ho has not been clear enough. He has not been following the rules by putting the site onto the list for land sales. Well, we've consulted relevant bureaus and departments and came to the conclusion that that portion of the site needs not be kept as a GIC site. So we modified its uses. Well, the public consultation exercise is not finished yet. You're still listening to public views. We are proposing to the Town Planning Board. Oh, it's not a proposal. You have already put it up in the land sales program. Well, 4 minutes each for questions and answers. Next time, you should leave some time for them to answer your question. Mr. Wong Yok-man, well, the statement of the government on the 4th of March was very strong. We have here Professor Albert Chan, President and Vice Chancellor of the Hong Kong Baptist University. Well, he should resign if nothing comes out of this exercise. Well, many years ago, we've been assisting the Baptist University in striving for more student hostels. And right from the very beginning, the university itself also had some responsibilities to bear. But let's drop that for the moment. I think our discussion just now was not too relevant to the main issue here. The Education Bureau is in full control of educational sites. Well, Under Secretary, that remark of mine must be correct. The Town Planning Board will only match your purpose. So you are in full control of the use of the site, and you are in full control of educational sites. You mention a whole basket of factors to be considered. You are just adopting double standard. Time is limited for me. I think the Baptist U incident has to be discussed on another occasion with all different departments present. You see, the government's position is so strong. Well, look at this serious statement. Well, Professor Chan, what the government is saying that they have all the say. So, Professor Chan, either you put up a struggle with them or you resign. Well, the government has got 4,000 square meters of government site and hundreds of millions of dollars for the construction of teaching facilities, etc., etc. Now, you mentioned a lot of figures here, but there's no formula. 4,000 square meters of floor area, and then 30,000 square meters for education purpose or space. That is 93.6% of demand. 1,330 odd places, hostel places for students. How did you arrive at those figures? We don't know the formula. So, what's the meaning of all these figures? All these figures are to attack Baptist U only. You're saying that they're doing this randomly and casually. If we don't know the formulae behind these figures are meaningless. All students, even primary pupils, know that they have to state the formula. So the Education Bureau should give us the formulae, not just figures and factors of consideration. Well, they told the Development Bureau that half of the formerly Wiley site could be used for other purposes. So that's to be changed to residential C purpose. That is for luxury flats. So the culprit was the Education Bureau. Another culprit is CY Leung, because we're in shortage of land, so we must create land for luxury flats. But that site is for educational purpose. is originally GIC site and educational site. But out of no justification, you say that that's to be used for the construction of luxury flats. We should reprimand the government. Mr. Albert Ho. Mr. Chairman, first of all, I'd like to ask about this Town Planning Board application. Does the Education Bureau support that application? I believe so. In the course of making that policy, was the Development Bureau taking the lead? Was the Education Bureau consulted? Does the Education Bureau support the Baptist U in that the university needs this portion of the site for the construction of a TCM hospital? Did you discuss this with the Education Bureau? Mr. Yang? Mr. Chairman, we did some calculation with a certain standard in mind. We came to the conclusion that the floor area and the number of hostel places required by Baptist U could be met by the other half of the site. So we decided to release the southern portion of the site. Before we release that portion of the site to the government, we considered that it's no longer needed for educational use. As for TCM hospital, it's a medical facility and a facility needed by the community. So we should consider that from a medical point of view. The Baptist U told us that there's a self-financed project, not a UGC-funded project. For self-financed projects, we don't necessarily have to provide land for the institution concerned. Mr. Apato, my question is, when the Education Bureau made that decision, apart from examining whether or not the needs of the Baptist U had been met, did you also consider the future developments of Baptist U, including the macro plan of the government to develop TCM? It seems that the Baptist U wants to speak. Now, first of all, Mr. Yang, did your bureau consider TCM development? Mr. Alberto asked you, before you decided to release the site to the government, did you consider the future development of Baptist U? Well, we carried out in-depth studies into the needs of Baptist U up to 2014-15. Yes, that's its needs for the next 3 years. I think Mr. Tam would like to supplement. Mr. Temple Yu. Well, perhaps I need to declare interest as well. I don't know whether I need to do so. I'm an external examiner of the Department of Planning Studies of the Hong Kong University, but that's not related to the Baptist U. Well, it's very timely for you to invite me to speak at this juncture. In simple terms, the teaching hospital may not necessarily be in the neighborhood of the university. For example, the teaching hospital of Hong Kong U is a certain distance away from the main campus of the Hong Kong U. For the specialist disciplines, it will be long-term strategies. 617 hectares of land will be available in the River Loop, and by taking a spur line of the East Rail, you can reach there. So the government must be policy-oriented. It's not population-led. Only primary and secondary schools are population-led, but not universities. So for TCM hospital, Shenzhen has a population of 10 million people. I'm not from the medical profession, but given the living habits of the people of Shenzhen, perhaps it's more appropriate for the TCM hospital to be situated near the boundary. As for rezoning the GIC site to residential use, is not really unreasonable because EIA, etc., has to be conducted. So a feasibility study is required. So don't set the prerequisite that only luxury flats will be built. Well, it's appropriate to convert it to residential use. Well, I'm rather surprised. In future, teaching hospitals can be dispersed throughout every district of Hong Kong. How can that be? Mr. Vincent, are you going to speak? Yes, please speak into the microphone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I represent the Hong Kong Institute of Urban Design. First of all, I have to declare that I was once an architect for the expansion of the campus of Baptist University. So I'm quite familiar with the site, and I'm viewing this issue from an urban design viewpoint. I'm rather emotional at this issue. Should we be led by somebody who does not know the issue? It seems that planning is for handing over figures. We neglect urban design factors. Urban design has to take care of a lot of factors: education, medical and health care, public open space, etc. Well, this site is surrounded on 3 sides by Baptist U. We're talking about university development in the long run. We're not talking about whether or not we need the site this year. Once that portion of the site is converted to residential use or luxury flat development, that portion will be lost forever. Now, let me cite Hong Kong U and Poly U as examples. For Hong Kong U, to develop the Centenary campus, they have to make use of a water supplies department site. And then for Poly U, for Stage 8 development, they used a nearby site in Chatham Road. So, this neighboring site may not be essential, but it is reasonable. We don't need to use so much data and make it so complicated.
Common sense.
It's just common sense that an adjoining land is considered appropriate. Now the government wants to build luxurious flats, and then we can provide a solution for high property prices or the existence of subdivided flats. I think this is just the wrong solution to address the problems. We're now talking about a planning problem, the long-term development, whether we should have a TCM hospital or whether it should be for Baptist universities. I think we should take a step back and look at what is a good urban design and what is good campus planning. Leung Kok Hong for the first round. Well, I protested in front of Mr. Paul Chan. He said, how would I know whether the Baptist idea to build a TCM hospital that would be supported by UGC? What if it cannot be carried out, and what's the use of giving the land if the Baptist use proposal cannot be implemented? All right, you now have a chance to see whether this should be for education. You are now going to allow it to change its land use. And Mr. Tam, Well, you are trying to tie it with government policy, and you're saying that it should be in Shanghai. Well, I'm not bothered by that. We are asking whether this should be used by Better Seal, and you are just saying that there is an 870 hectares in Shanghai. They should go to Shanghai, but it's irrelevant here. The CY Leung has always been talking about being proactive appropriately. There's no TCM hospital, and now there's a party proposing to have this hospital, and there's a piece of land next to the university, and then you adopt a bureaucratic tone. You ask whether the UGC will allow it. We don't know. And then you have no specified use for the site as a result. And according to your existing planning standards, the land for Baptist U is sufficient. But they are talking about expansion. If you allow expansion, then land is insufficient. So you don't know where to start. The Secretary for Education says we follow the rules. We have made the calculation, and this land has to be given up. We don't have the Secretary and or FSCS. We don't have CS. Have you informed the CS for A that 3 bureaus are involved, and Professor Albert Chan threatened resignation? If you haven't done this, what's the use of having the CS for A? For bickering, the CS for A is supposed to be responsible for coordination. So you are just saying that it's none of my business. Well, I just want to ask these officials here. Have you informed CS4A, Mrs. Carrie Lam, and has Mrs. Carrie Lam informed CY Leung? Well, Mr. CY Leung sounded so competent before he assumed office. He said there are always more solutions than problems. Have you got your solutions? Have you informed the CS4A? Has the CS4A informed the CY Leung? And has CY Leung asked you to be flexible? Well, actually, the bureaus and departments have complied with the existing mechanism. The answer is simple. Have you informed the CS4A? We don't have an answer for this one. Time's up. You have to respect the chairman. For the second round, we have Dr. Fernando Cheung and Helena Wong and Leung Kok-hong. You have to respect the chairman. We have Professor Albert Chan in attendance, so I will be giving him some time to talk about land for education use. I hope you will not just be talking about the TCM hospital. Thank you, Chairman. I will be talking about the answers to questions. It seems strange that they are not really answering the question direct. For example, Dr. Fernando Cheung asked a question that whether the Baptist use was consulted before the government announced on the 21st of December on the change of land use. And then there was a roundabout answer saying that the UGC consulted us. And there was also some reports saying that we agree to the change of land use. That's incorrect. When we talk to the Food and Health Bureau, whether it's in a formal or informal occasion, well, to us, it's very formal. We're talking about council chairman and the president and also the vice president of the university talking to someone designated to represent the Food and Health Bureau. It was a meeting, a very formal one to us, and we were not talking about the difficulties for the Tsim Sha Tsui project. We agreed actually that the Tsim Sha Tsui collaboration could not be proceeded with, and they promised to liaise with other departments so that we can use the Vide campus for our TCM hospital. An email was sent to us immediately asking us to provide the necessary information. And that's the layout plan. Because we have already submitted a formal proposal to the government on the proposed hospital. And you just change the address. It would be a formal proposal for Vide. But why didn't we change the address? Because we have been waiting for the official to revert to us. There was a reasonable expectation that he was working on it, and then he would be informing us on what to do. If you said we had not followed the procedure, it's difficult. Since 2005, we have been writing proposals to the government without getting any replies. So it's difficult for us to follow whatever procedure deemed necessary. Well, we have been waiting for the government to give us indication on what more should be done in terms of procedure, or what more information would be required. I think this is just an argument. You can say this or that should or should not be done. But actually, we are talking about an issue impacting social justice and our Hong Kong's future. And then we have a much needed land for education purposes. Why do we want to turn the site into a luxurious residential site? And the government has tried to distort the meaning and bend round the definition, saying that it's just for 800 square foot flats costing $20 million. So I think it would be high-end, at least true to say that it would be high-end property. If we create this precedent, it's very dangerous for tertiary education. The future of Hong Kong hinges on the development of tertiary education. If we attach no importance to higher education, then we are failing our future generations. Mr. Leung Kong asked whether the Baptist University really gave support to this. And Mr. Paul Chan said whether it was unsure whether the program could be implemented. Actually, in our Vision 2020, one of the important parts will be this hospital. And the Baptist University Council members all support this. So all stakeholders within the universities are in support of this. And we have been told that there may be difficulties in having a TCM hospital, and what about acute and emergency services for patients and so on. Sorry for the interruption, but I have to remind you that we are talking about use of land for education. Actually, we should be talking about one thing. That is whether a land should be used for education for our future generation, or should we build some luxurious flats. It's not going to benefit anyone except the developer. Not even the purchasers will stand to benefit, because the student hostels would just be next to it, and it would be noisy. Dr. Fernando Cheung, Helena Wong, Leung Yu Chung, and Leung Kok Hong. We have a motion to handle after this. So for this round, 2 minutes each round. If you want to get an answer, please ask your questions most succinctly. Dr. Fernando Cheung. Well, we'll deal with this after the second round. Dr. Fernando Cheung. Chairman, I think someone is guilty of dereliction of duty in this incident. Why a piece of land which has been used for education for so many years and which is adjoining Baptist Youth would be turned into a high-end residential land? As Winston says, it's actually a matter of common sense. If people in the Education Bureau has any common sense, this will never have happened. It's said that consultation has been done and is considered no longer necessary for education. And the Education Bureau said the Baptist Youth was consulted. And I'm glad that today we have Professor Chan, and I appreciate the courage and the sense of togetherness between the staff and students. Baptist Youth said there was no consultation. You said yes. Please tell us when, where did the consultation take place? And the Food and Health Bureau said they didn't know and whether it's something formal or informal. According to the president of Baptist Youth, in October, the permanent secretary was informed that they would like to get this piece of land for a TCM hospital. Did that meeting really take place? Well, I was answering a question of Mr. Albert Ho in calculating the space requirement. Well, actually, there's a triennial cycle under UGC planning. If you say that whether there was consultation on change of land use, well, this is not really an answer to the question. Next. I think today the crux of the matter is that whether our housing program should really be accorded a higher priority over education. I think up to the 10th of October last year, there was a lot of discussion between the Baptist Youth and the Food and Health Bureau. Well, it was friendly. There was some discussions in order to get things done. But then, all of a sudden, on the 21st of December, an application was submitted to the Town Planning Board for the change of land use. That is not acceptable to me, and that is really silly. Why is it that the government wants to make the relationship so poor instead of improving the matter and the arrangements?
I think the whole incident has reached a very dangerous point. In paragraph 12 of the paper, it is said that the site has been handed back to the administration because the need of the Baptist University has been met up to 2014-15, as mentioned just now. Well, once the educational site is handed back to the government, it's gone. If we're only to satisfy the needs up to 2015, what will happen in 2016? We don't have any more land. And for primary and secondary schools, if their present needs are all met and all the educational sites are handed back to the government, what will happen after 2016? How should we plan for our educational needs in the short, medium, and long term? If all planning stops at 2014-15 is totally unacceptable, and Hong Kong will be thrown into a bottomless pit forever. Dr. Helena Wong, just now, when I asked the Food and Health Bureau a question, they said that the government is actually in support of a TCM hospital. It's just that they're studying the issue. Apparently, from their move, the government has not been working hard towards the development of a TCM hospital. The Baptist Youth actually belongs to the private sector. It takes the lead in developing a TCM hospital. It's only begging you for a piece of land. Well, both secretaries for Food and Health were Western medical practitioners, and TCM prescriptions could not be used. Hong Kong is very well posed for the amalgamation of Western medicine and TCM. Well, I also asked the administration whether or not it would develop Western medicine and TCM at the same time and study its amalgamation. It said it would study the issue. You see, we're turning out so many TCM professionals all the years, but there's no TCM hospital to practice. Is this TCM hospital not an educational use? Does it need an educational site? In Hong Kong, we have a set of accreditation factors for designing our curricula, and institutions do discuss with the UGC in developing their curricula. Next, Mr. Leung Yiu Chung. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hand the floor over to our Baptist University colleagues so that they can air their feelings. Who will speak? Mr. Lee? Mr. Andy Lee? Mr. Chairman, we must face this issue squarely. It's a GIC site. It should not be converted to residential users with luxury flats on them. It's actually very difficult for us to discuss with the Education Bureau. On the 10th of October 2012, we made it very clear to the Food and Health Bureau what would happen. The Bureau sent an email to us saying that they would discuss with the Development Bureau and the Education Bureau as to how to make use of the formerly Wiley site as a TCM hospital. And then they said that they would write back to us and tell us what happened. Our relationship then was very good, and I am very grateful to that official. But then suddenly, on the 21st of December, a proposal was put to the Town Planning Board to convert that portion of the site to luxury flat purpose. Both our teaching staff and students were very surprised. We told a certain bureau our clear plans, and an official of the bureau told us that there would be internal discussion within the government. The bureau did not come back to us to tell us what we should do. We only heard from the news that there was such a proposal to the Town Planning Board. So I think we did have quite a bit of difficulties in our discussion with different bureaus. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong. Well, Mr. Tam Yu Chung told me that we could oppose the proposal. All right, I'm telling Mr. Paul Chan that I'm opposing this. He said that if I oppose, the government would refrain from pushing forth that proposal. So, I'm telling you I oppose it. Have you heard me? So, you should take back your proposal. After C.Y. Leung has met with so many difficulties, for example, with this impeachment motion from us, C.Y. Leung is trying to do something to rescue his popularity rate. Well, this is actually a political crisis on the part of C.Y. Leung. But listen to me. His political crisis cannot be relieved just because of these small actions. We say we don't have enough PRH. Then he said that he would find more land sites. But these land sites will only satisfy the land developers. how many votes we have from the land developers here. So the result of voting or election is controlled by the land developers. Well, did you consult the CE or the CS for administration? I give you a chance to answer this question. Did you consult them? If not, when are you going to consult them? In the whole process, who made the decision? Did the CE or the CS for administration interfere? Mr. Chairman, I've not consulted the CE or the CS for administration in the whole process. Did they give him instruction? Well, he did not consult them. Did they give him instruction? Did he write them a slip, for example? Well, please ask this question on another occasion. Do I have another occasion? Now, before I handle Ms. Claudia Mo's motion, I'd like to give 2 minutes to Ms. Fong from the Baptist University Student University. On the 4th of this month, a statement with almost 2,000 words was published by the administration to justify its cause. It's shifting the focus from the administration to the Baptist U. Is trying to justify itself, saying that it is totally fair and just, is misleading the public. As a Baptist U student, we are very angry and chilled by this move of the government. After this modification of land use of this formerly Wiley site, we felt the firm and strong position of the government. According to the figures provided by the government, we lack 80,000 square meters of floor area for all the tertiary institutions. So can you still argue that our tertiary institutions no longer need any further land? The government says that it's eager to address public concerns, but this site is to be used for luxury flats. How can luxury flats address the basic needs of the grassroots? The government said that government departments had been fully consulted when it passed the proposal to the Town Planning Board. With so strong views from society now, is it going to withdraw its proposal? The 36 sites had not been disclosed by the government. How can the government foresee that this formerly Wiley site would not be needed for educational purpose? And we want to know the 36 GIC sites which has not yet been disclosed. In February 2014, this formerly Wiley site would be sold. Any hidden agenda behind all these, any collusion behind the government and the business, how can the government be accountable to the public? Silence, please. Ms. Fong, would you please leave your speech, the script of your speech with us? Mr. Young, can I respond briefly? It doesn't matter. I'm chairing the meeting. You don't need to quarrel. Well, we have to handle Ms. Claudia Mo's motion, which is tabled. Well, I don't want any more discussion on this because we've had sufficient discussion today. We just need to take a vote. This panel opposes the government's proposal to convert the land use of the formerly Wiley Industrial Institute. And this portion of the formerly Wiley College site should be retained as GIC uses, including the original educational use. And the Secretary, any response to this motion? Mr. Chairman, well, I'm talking about this motion, not Ms. Fong's remarks. Oh, yes, of course. Well, I think we've explained a great deal about this motion. The government has followed all proper procedures in arriving at that decision. In fact, 40% of that site would be handed over to the Baptist youth for educational purpose. The remaining portion would be converted to residential use. We've considered the educational uses proposed. The Food and Health Bureau studied the proposal for a TCM hospital. The Education Bureau has studied possible educational uses. All right, I think we've discussed enough. Now, this motion is moved by Ms. Claudia MO and seconded and amended by Dr. Fernando Cheung. Those in favor, please raise their hand. 7, 8. Those against, please raise their hand. Any abstention? Eight for, none against, 1 abstention. So the motion is carried. Silence, please. Well, please remain calm. Please remain calm. Even if the motion is carried, it does not mean that the site will be retained for educational use. Mr. Chairman, I have to clarify a point. Just now, the Baptist youth said something about the Food and Health Bureau. Sorry, we're overrun. Please clarify in writing. It's the same. Next item on the agenda, I'll hand over the chair to the Deputy Chairman, Mr. Ip. The Secretariat will follow up on that. How will that motion be followed up? Well, according to the ROP, the Secretariat will follow up on that. Can we follow up on that at the next meeting? Just now we already decided on the issues to be discussed at the next meeting. But this motion has been carried. Well, allow the Secretariat to follow up.
好，咁我哋就歡送主席啊。咁然之後咧，亦都係請下一批嘅。
All right, we move on to the next item. Please invite the officials to come in.
係好。
我諗盡量精簡，如果唔係，跟住冇時間處理你最後嗰個議案。
好。好，各位，因為咧跟住咧，其實林大輝主席咧頭先咧即係主持嘅時候咧。
Actually, we overran a lot when Mr. Lam Tai-fai chaired the previous item. So we have to move on quickly. Next, student guidance service in primary schools. May I invite Mr. Kevin Young, the Acting Secretary for Education, to give an introduction. This is the background and development of the comprehensive student guidance service and enhancement measures. The details are in the paper. First of all, in terms of the philosophy, the rationale, CSGC is about building a system in the schools and not relying on professionals outside the schools. This would ensure that the counseling service will be conducted with stability and will not be affected by change of personnel. And primary students are inquisitive, and therefore we are going to be adopt a more remedial, preventive approach. It's about developing the positive attitude. When students reach puberty, they have to face a lot of problems resulting in behavior or learning problems, and a lot of personal counseling will be required. And therefore, primary school students require different services. So we design a service to tie in with their development needs. The Education Bureau has been reviewing the provision of service. We have been liaising with the professionals, And over the years, we have been providing more resources, increasing the manning ratio of guidance personnel, and the new resources would be used to employ more student guidance personnel so that we can better prevent problems. And in order to help with the handling of more difficult cases, the school-based scheme will be covering all public sector primary schools in 2016-17. At present, the grant arrangement is flexible, so the schools can decide to employ different professionals and personnel, and this would meet the needs of specific schools more appropriately. We have no plan to change the current grant system. We'll continue to monitor such services for schools, and we would certainly maintain the liaison with stakeholders. That's all for my introduction. All right, members, who would like to speak on this item? Dr. Fernando Chan, Mr. Peter Chan, and Dr. Helena Wong. All right, we don't have a lot of time, so 3 minutes each round. Dr. Fernando Chan. Thank you, Chairman. Of course, we have had student guidance service in primary schools for many years, and this is much needed. Family backgrounds of primary students are much more complicated now. We have students from new arrival families, and even primary students are facing psychological distress, and they are also victims of domestic violence. If I may quote social workers' general union's statistics, some 30% of primary students have some problems. But this system is problematic because it relies heavily on short-term contracts. The entire service is outsourced. The schools would select some organizations to deploy social workers to serve the schools, and the longest duration would just be 3 years. Therefore, the social workers have their service contracts extended year by year, and as a result, the turnover rate is very high. They are getting lower pay than other social workers, and the contracts are short contracts. According to the survey, we are talking about a wastage rate of 33.2%. It's from 2010 to 11. So 1/3 of social workers left in 1 year. And sometimes you have 2 to 3 different social workers in 1 year. So how can the service be effectively provided? I think the government should conduct a comprehensive review, and the grant system is very problematic. The amount of grant is too low. The manpower level is also too low. There must be a comprehensive review. Is the administration prepared to do this? I think the philosophy is to have a whole school approach. And that is to say, the school principal, teachers, and other professionals, such as social workers and guardians teachers, will be forming a small group to provide the service. Precisely because we don't want the service to be affected by people resigning. Last year, we increased the resources on this, and this service will be subject to constant review. Mr. Peter Chan. Chairman, 3 minutes is barely sufficient, but I would like to ask a point to follow up those made by Dr. Fernando Chan. I agree, in recent couple of years, a little bit more has been provided to schools. But did those schools spend all the resources on staff? I don't know, because you allow the schools to spend the money in whatever way they like. If they invite tenders and they can make do with $200,000, they can keep the additional money, and the money is in the overall accounts. It's an ECA fund. Everything is in that account. We don't know how much is spent on comprehensive student guidance service, or how much money is not used on this. For guidance service personnel, they should construct or build a relationship with students over time. But if it's done through a tender system, there's no long-term relationship. And for the schools, since the funding is not recurrent, there is a chance that it would be withdrawn later. So the schools can only engage people on a contract basis, and for some service that require a long-term relationship, the service quality would not be very good. I would like to ask the administration whether there will be a review, that since it has been implemented for 10 years. Well, let me talk about the grant, the uses of grant. It's a special grant. They can only use the grant on student guidance. Of course, whether it's used for hiring personnel or for resource, meeting other resource demands, well, the school can choose whatever is considered best for their students. This year, we have increased we have provided a special grant as well. We see how they utilize the grant and the implication for the service before we can work out the long-term direction. There's a problem with the system. Therefore, however much you deploy your resources on this, the problems will not go away. Well, we would like to do this on a school-based basis, and then the schools can decide how to use the resources. We believe this is more appropriate. In other words, you are not going to conduct any review. Next, Dr. Helena Wong. Thank you, Deputy Chairman. According to the paper, the student guidance service for primary schools is based on the model of the USA. But you only have a student guidance personnel. You do not follow the USA practice with schools, social workers. So why are you just copying the USA model partially? You know that some students come from families with complicated backgrounds. So you require school social workers. There are students from new arrival families or families with limited means. And there are also problems like sexual harassment, even in primary schools. So can you tell us why you do not want to deploy the social workers in schools? Mr. Deputy, not every primary school or the primary school student faces such serious problems, because the nature of guidance is preventive in nature, and of course the schools are given resources to take appropriate follow-up action. The idea is to allow the school to use its resources on appropriate cases. Well, we do not rule out that the school can use the grant to hire a social worker. But if we say this is a rule across the board for all schools, it may not be the best for students. And since we are also providing new resources, we believe perhaps the current model can meet the needs of the schools more closely. Has the Bureau visited the schools and talked to the teachers and principals to learn about their views of your guidance service? Or are they not having, or are their students not encountering serious problems? Are we having fewer problems than USA so that we don't need to have social workers? Well, I'm not saying that there may be a need from some primary students. What we're saying is that the flexibility should be given to the schools to decide how to use the funds. As for our communication with the schools, if I may, I would like to supplement. Well, maybe some other time. Mr. Leung Yu-chung, flexibility is good, but flexibility should not be so high that they can choose what to do or what not to do. There must be some basic requirements since you provide the grant. And then apart from basic requirements, they should enjoy flexibility. For SCN students, tutorial for school or homework would be important. But there should be more provided for counseling. I don't know how much is provided in terms of the grant so that they can hire professional counselors to counsel these SEN students. I don't have a lot in my school, but there are some. If you want to make sure that they can pay attention to their homework, it's very difficult unless you have counselors or professionals providing the necessary guidance to these SEN students. All right, you want to respect the schools, but do you have any basic requirements? Don't say that there is no requirement whatsoever. Nothing is mandatory. And with the grant provided, how many professional guidance personnel or counselors can they hire to help their students? Well, the grant is given to the schools to provide guidance for the entire student population. As for SCN students, they will be given other resources.
As for the communication with schools, how can we make them able to serve the schools and students? Well, SEN students need more assistance in terms of homework, so they need more counseling services by professionals. So the money you have so far allocated to them is not enough. Well, we understand that. That's why we always review the situation. So why is there no progress? We have another subcommittee to follow up on that. Well, at the beginning, this sum of money was for a whole school approach. So we hope that the resources can also serve SEN students. The Education Bureau will monitor and support student guidance service in primary schools. Well, this is a dedicated sum of money to be used on student guidance service. We've actually updated the guidelines on whole school approach and the use of the funds. We request each school to formulate plans and reports annually and be accountable to the stakeholders. So we support as well as supervise schools in this regard. Second round, please be as concise as possible. Dr. Fernando Chan and then Mr. Leung Yew Chung, 2 minutes each. Mr. Chairman, this is in fact a very important issue as well. Unfortunately, every time we do not have enough time. The government has no intention to review the existing situation. It seems that the government is happy with the present situation, but objectively, the wastage rate of councillors stands at 1/3. By looking at that figure, you know that there is a problem. The Undersecretary, Mr. Yang, said that they were in a whole team, but we need somebody who knows education and somebody who knows what's meant by people-oriented. And then the relationship between service providers and service users is very important. Without establishing a good relationship, these funds won't be constructive and fruitful. Well, we're talking about a change of councillors once every 3 years. In the first year, students start to understand or know the teachers. If every year the wastage rate stands at 1/3, how can these student guidance teachers play their role? There's no stability. If you don't know the students, how can you provide counseling service? So don't just give us figures. Don't just try to settle the problem financially. If a student has problems and difficulties, if you fail to help him, at the end of the day, the problem will come back to you. So please review the whole arrangement. Mr. Leung Yew Chung. Our government colleague just now said that they require a plan from the schools, and indicators are also required. Have you reviewed the effectiveness of the program? Do you have indicators? So we want an overall analysis. The most important thing is, be it SEN students or not, counseling is something professional and should be provided by professionals. It's not as simple as doing arithmetic. How many schools at present have professional counselors, including psychologists? I'll defer to the Permanent Secretary. Mr. Chairman, I mentioned the annual plan. That is actually self-assessment. There's also external assessment. Under the external assessment mechanism, dozens of schools will be assessed by internal assessors. We'll look at the support service provided to students in their developments. In this regard, schools' performances have been very good. And in annual inspection reports, we can see that schools performed very well. They attach importance to the conduct of students, classroom culture, introduction of parents and external resources. And every year they set themes. Mr. Chairman, this is just a figure or essay explanation. I really want to know whether there's actual assessment and monitoring. Well, please give us a written reply. We want to have some analysis on the overall monitoring and effectiveness of the whole program. So please give us a written reply. Well, students are the beneficiaries, Chairman. So what's the feedback of the students on the whole program? So Education Bureau, please give us the information. A number of issues were raised just now, including the serious wastage of social workers, whether or not there are dedicated social workers or counselors to handle students, etc. And one of the very serious problems is related to review. I hope that the Education Bureau will seriously consider all these suggestions. So much for this item. We'll proceed to the next one. And another batch of officials will enter the conference room. So thank you very much.
咁咧喺有關嘅官員進入。
Well, as the next batch of officials is entering the room, we have to handle a motion moved by me. If I'm to chair the meeting, there may be conflict of interest. I wonder whether any member can take the chair. Mr. Leung Yu Chung nominates Dr. Fernando Cheung. Any objection? No? So, Dr. Fernando Cheung, please. Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'll chair the meeting for the time being. Now, this item is issues arising from the Public Policy Research Funding Scheme, follow-up to special meeting on the 21st of February 2013. The Central Policy Unit has taken back the $20 million. So welcome the team from the administration. Last time we received a motion. We started discussion on that, and today we'll have to take a vote. We may not need to discuss the motion at length today. Well, Mrs. Regina Ip, I'll give the floor to you in a moment. I'll invite the Deputy Chairman to brief us on his motion, and then I'll see whether the CPU has any response, and then we'll take a vote. Mrs. Regina Ip, you have a question? Well, I want to ask the administration questions. So just a moment, please. No problem. Deputy Chairman, would you please brief us on your motion? Mr. Chairman, last time we had a detailed discussion on the motion. As this meeting is broadcast live, I have to read it out. Without any consultation, the Central Policy Unit in November 2012 took back the funding for Public Policy Research Funding Scheme. This panel is of the view that this act on the part of the CPU is very rough, and without consultation, the funding allocation mechanism is changed, and the CPU may become a publicity tool, or rather, academic studies may become the academic or publicity tool of the government. The CPU was not appropriate in that act, so this panel urges the CPU to withdraw its decision on withdrawing the fund allocation right and renew its original appointment and tasks. and public consultation should be carried out. This panel also urges the UGC and tertiary institutions to firmly uphold academic freedom and autonomy and further actively promote local public policy studies. As I said, we need not discuss the motion anymore, but I'd like to see whether the CPU has any response. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the 21st of February, at a special meeting of the Education Panel, the CPU already explained the reason and transitional arrangements for the Public Policy Research Funding Scheme. The CPU is taking up this scheme starting from 2013. Detailed plans will be formulated. We will maintain academic freedom and actively promote local public policy studies. Thank you. Well, members, unless it's necessary, we don't need to discuss anymore. Mrs. Regina, if you have some questions. Mr. Chairman, before we take a vote, I have some questions for the administration. Here we have some information. Ever since 2010, we had a broad spectrum of studies. Why suddenly the administration wanted to pass the decision-making power to the CPU? I just want to know the reason. Thank you, Mrs. Ip, for your question. In recent years, policy-wise, the administration needs a very strong academic backup. In the past, the direction of public policy research has been more academically inclined, and policy needs were not given sufficient attention. After all, we're working within the government framework. So we asked whether this sum of money can be operated within our own framework, such that the senior level of the government and the policy bureaus will examine their respective policy needs and address public concerns. And we have to study the transitional arrangements as well. After the CPU has taken up the scheme, will emphasize more public policies rather than academic research. This is actually the need of the overall research environment in the community. Thank you, Professor Wong. It's already 6:30. Can I ask that this meeting be extended by 5 minutes? Mrs. Yip, can you finish in 1 minute? Yes, very quickly.
If we look at the research topics over the years, they are very varied and cover a lot of areas. For example, comparing Hong Kong and Singapore as a location for the regional headquarters. So it would be something proposed by academics. And now you want to tie in with policy needs. So you will be giving orders, and you will be specifying the policy research areas for people to participate. Would the participation of academics be restricted as a result? Well, we will not be giving out directives, or we will only be setting the policy areas to be looked into, and then academics would decide what they can offer. So both sides would consider their own needs. Yes? Mr. Leung Yu Chung, you have a question? A simple one, 2 minutes. I will be brief. So, are you bent on not making any change to the plan? Well, we have decided to shoulder responsibility as from 2013-14 for 1 year. It would depend on whether further funding will be provided. Are you going to do the same in your 5-year term? I cannot give you a specific answer concerning the entire 5-year period. So this will be subject to annual review or what? The past practice would involve applying for funds from the Finance Committee. So, sorry, point of order. Time is really exhausted. We need 7 members to form a quorum. So we must get Mrs. Yip back before we can proceed to a vote. That's why I asked members not to speak. We need to vote on the motion. I'll now put the motion to vote. We have a quorum of 7. No more discussion. For those in favor of the motion moved by the Deputy Chairman, hands up please. Those against? Abstention? All right. 6-4, 1 abstain. The motion is carried. We know the CPU. Oh, thank you, Mrs. Yip. Thank you very much. They would not change. Mr. Yu Cho, they are not going to change tab. When they have any new proposal, and that is the procedure to spend the $200,000. I hope when you have come up with your procedure, please give us a paper and come back to the Education Bureau to brief us. Can you do this, Professor Wong? I will seriously consider this proposal. Of course. We want to maintain a good relationship with LegCo. Of course, it's also our duty to see to it. All right, thank you. If there's nothing under AOB, meeting's adjourned.